Yeah.
Just like it's just the entire. Like,
Yeah, we don't know what effect.
Yes.
What day are we on now? 17, 18.
I don't know. It's ridiculous.
Here, I'll save it.
Are we live?
Council, you're up.
Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled Finance Committee meeting. Today is Monday, March 16th, 2026. I am sitting in for Councillor Fish as chair. On the committee tonight, we have Councillor Falloon, Councillor Mallor, Councillor Beck, Councillor Dean, which is me, and Councillor Leonard will be sitting in the committee. Also at the table is Chair Hawes, City Manager Lear, and our Finance Director, Stephanie Kimball.
Thank you.
Looks as though we will lead off with bids and purchases.
Yes. Okay, the first one we have today is a patrol vehicle for the police department. The police department's budgeted for the purchase of 3 patrol vehicles in fiscal year 26. The vehicle will be purchased under the state of Maine master bid agreement. So therefore it did not go out to bid. The budgeted amount for the purchase of the patrol vehicles is $118,473, and the purchase price of the vehicle is $46,117. This will be funded through budgeted capital, and we request approval for the vehicle.
Any questions on the vehicle? I entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. We will go with staff recommendation for the purchase of a vehicle for $46,117. And next up is the sewer system maintenance and repair.
Yes, the engineering department requested bids for sewer system maintenance and repairs contract. This is to fix defects in the sanitary sewer system and stormwater drainage system for small projects that don't exceed 100,000. Any large projects will go through the capital improvement planning process. We had 2 bids from qualified local contractors. One amount was 1.2 million and one amount was 2.2 million. The low bid was CNC Lynch Excavation. We have an excellent experience with them and have worked with them on small projects in the past. So engineering is requesting that we award it to CNC Lynch.
Any questions on the sewer update? Councilor Falloon?
All right, I'm just looking at, all right, so the amount of the award as needed, can you explain that? And then the budget amount, is that like plus or minus $1 million? Because it comes in at more than that, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's for small projects, so multiple small projects. It's not just one specific project, but I'll let Jefferson.
Hello, Jeff Davis, Director of Engineering. So this is a as needed award. So what we do is we budget yearly for this. And then we have a bid item, if you look in, you saw the bid tab. So we have multiple bid items that are good on for each unit.
Yeah.
And so the way the totals don't really matter, it's just that individual bid item, but we can only spend what we budget for. So we budget $1 million usually, or $800 to $1 million a year. And then we do projects with that amount.
So when it comes out over like this, 1,278,100, like where does that like overage or?
This is just to get us, this bid total is an average of 3 years kind of thing. So it's kind of confusing, I understand, but the amount of award is as needed. It's because it's a as needed basis. So
Okay,
we're not
so
awarded
you're planning
1.2 million, we're not awarded 2.2 million. The only thing that sticks in this contract is actually the unit items. I don't know if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah, this is more of a price list, right?
It's a
This is what they
price
usually
list, so they-
charge us if we needed That I know.
You need each of those and then you will like
So the
pick
quantity,
them off as needed.
yeah,
Yeah,
so the
okay, yeah,
quantities in this bid item sheet are like a 3-year average.
yeah,
So we,
Gotcha.
because we had to give the contractor something to bid on,
yeah,
so.
gotcha, okay,
So
thank you.
we just stick with their actual unit prices.
Yeah.
I have a question, Jefferson. So this 1 million is for one fiscal year, or is that for the 3 years that?
So this is a 3-year contract, so the unit items are guaranteed for three years. But we budget, $800 to $1 million a year.
A year?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Counselor Beck?
And we have to take the whole list from them, like we can't say, for example, I'm just looking at a couple of these. The 6-foot diameter manhole replacement, the low bidder is 12,500 and the one that we can go with is only 9,000. So we can't pick and choose a la carte. So this is how we come up with an average.
Yeah. And we don't know if we're gonna end up using that in the 3 years, but we have to put it in there, so if we do come to it, then we don't have to fight with a contractor or negotiate, I shouldn't say fight, negotiate with a contractor. And at that time, they're gonna be a much higher price
Sure.
because it's gonna be needed right then.
Yeah, and I would also imagine too that it takes staff time to have to go through this list every time. They, who's the cheaper guy here? Who's the cheaper guy here? Whereas if it's just one contractor,
Or,
you just done the work.
since 2014, we've awarded like these 3-year contracts.
Yeah.
This, I think that started in 2014. So, we have that contract available. So if something breaks or if there's if we, in one of our videos, if we see something that's gonna break and we need to fix it. If we don't have it as a bid unit, then we have to negotiate with a contractor and then just things are much more expensive. So this bid item sheet that you have in front of you is much more advanced than the last 3-year contract, because we've seen what we've used in that average of 3 years and we try to get those prices down. I just confused everybody any more than.
So worst case scenario, say we went through every single item and then we needed 2 of something. Where does the additional funding come from? If
We'd
we
have
had
to
a
come
very,
back to
very
you
good
to,
year.
we'd have to come back to you to. But
Probably never seen that happen.
no, we try to, I have a gentleman engineering that looks at all these videos. This is what he spends most of his time on, to see, where the worst of the worst are. And we try to use that 800,000 to $1 million in that fiscal year, to get it all done. So if there's a bigger break, at the beginning of the year, we might use more money upfront. Typically, these are $100,000 or less. I think there's only been 2 times in the last 10 years or so where we've come across something that's gonna be 300,000, 400,000 to use them once.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion?
I move staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, any doubt? We will see this on council on Monday.
Thank you.
Yeah. Update on 290 Pearl Street.
Yes, the city's tax collector spoke with Ms. Rambo in addition to mailing a letter in regards to moving forward with taking possession of the property. Prior to the meeting, she had reached out and to see if reached out to Mr. Tennant to see if he would be willing to list the property for her rather than city taking possession. The request was discussed with the tax collector. They were hopeful that there was an interested buyer. With the latest information, it was requested that it be tabled until next meeting. Everyone met to discuss the deadlines that we felt were reasonable. We proposed a deadline of April 15th to sign a purchase sale agreement, with closing taking place May 31st, 2026. As of March 16th, 2026, the amount owed is $32,341.27.
Questions?
So if I just might, as a reminder, this one was tabled because I think council was in agreement with allowing her to sell the property, but was looking for that end date to make sure that the city was protected. And so the new information is that the deadline is gonna be April 15th and a closing to take place by May 31st.
Is the owner still in the home?
I'm getting up.
Counselor Beck, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wondered, I mean, so if that deadline comes and goes and it doesn't work out, that just puts us back to the square one with.
Take the property.
Yes. So I guess in staff's opinion, then, I mean, this just seems like a, I don't want to use the word no-brainer, but it just seems like we have everything to gain, nothing to lose by going into this agreement. Because in our worst case scenario is we're just right back where we started and we look at taking the property.
I think that's right. I mean, all we lose is time, and we are required to go through listing with an agent. And so we would incur these costs directly. That's gonna be managed by the seller, so it saves us.
Any other questions? And a motion?
I do staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any doubt? I'll see the zoning. Council? Or did this go through?
No.
No, this was not.
Staff recommendation. And we have another. Workout agreement on 181 State Street.
Yes, this was also tabled, I believe, last meeting. Mr. Butler requested a meeting with city staff regarding taxes and utility that were delinquent on 181 State Street. There are multiple liens on the property, including matured liens for both, for a total of 59,111. He's interested in redeeming the property, would like to enter into a workout agreement. He proposed an agreement calling for minimum payment of $6,500 per quarter, which would go towards this property. Included in the agreement is the requirement to keep all taxes and utility accounts current and paid on time for all properties. The term would be for 1 year. In addition to entering into the agreement, he'd be required to enter into an agreement with Community Economic Development for vacant building registry fees. If all terms of the workout agreement have been met by the end of the 1 year period, he may request a new agreement for the remainder of what's owed.
Any questions? Counselor Beck.
Part of the discussion we had last meeting was, you know, looking at all the other properties, see if any of them were behind. Did we determine that they're all currently, everything else is up to date that he owns?
So yes, after I
Could you
spoke
state
with,
your name?
I'm sorry, Janelle Emerson, tax collector. So I did speak with him after we met last time, and he came right in. He has all other properties paid to a zero balance. It's just 181 State Street for taxes and utility.
I do have a question on this. How long does this go on if he's not fulfilling his commitment? Is it a year that he has to fulfill his full commitment, or do you go quarter by quarter?
Quarter by quarter, so he would, if he defaults, I would send him a letter. He has 30 days to comply, and then if he doesn't, at that point, it would be put in.
Any other questions? Dr. Mallard.
He's up to date as of today, and he has to continue to be up to date.
Correct, it's with the workout.
I want to be sure.
So after the year, if he makes these 4 payments, he'll still owe half the amount, it looks like roughly. Would he just enter another 1 year agreement for the other half, or?
Yep, so if he complies with the agreement, we would come back with another request.
Okay, and this is the first agreement for this property?
He's had some prior agreements with us for all his properties. He's just at the point where this is the only one that's left.
Okay, and he was in compliance with all the other ones?
Yes, yep.
Anything else? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any concern? We will, staff recommendation to enter into the workout agreement with
Thank
Mr.
you.
Butler. Yeah. Next up is an order authorizing issuance of $75 million of general obligation bonds for Consolidated Parks and Recreation Facility.
I'm gonna go over this in a second.
So, you'll recall that, gosh, a workshop now, 2 weeks ago. Director of Parks and Rec, Tracy Bullock, and I discussed, or brought back the ongoing conversation surrounding the committee, the special committee's proposal for a new Parks and Rec facility. And we, at that time, we presented sort of a phased construction schedule as well as a more detailed bond repayment schedule than we had our first go around at this conversation. At that workshop, council voted to move forward with placing that on the ballot, a workshop vote, obviously. And so then on first reading, you had this this order authorizing the issuance of the $75 million bond that we would be looking for in the event that the voters approve bonding for the new Parks and Rec facility. This is now the Finance Committee meeting on that bond order. And then this will appear again for second reading and for a public hearing on Monday, the 23rd. And at that time, there would also be an order placing the item on the ballot. And so it would have the specific ballot language that would appear, but that doesn't require 2 readings, just the bond authorization does require 2 readings. That's why it's done a little differently and they don't sort of travel together.
So the public hearing would be a good time for the public to pose questions.
It would still be a public hearing, so it wouldn't really, according to our policy, wouldn't be an opportunity for questions, but it would be an opportunity for the public to weigh in on whether they think this is a good idea or a bad idea.
Dr. Falloon.
I have some comments and a bunch of questions, so I want to start with just saying, like, I definitely support the new Parks and Rec facility because we need it. I've been to the rec facility recently and it's in dire shape. But so my concern isn't like whether we build it, it's how we go about it. And I'm really concerned about going too big, too fast and just defeating the project entirely, which I think would be a worse outcome than taking a more measured approach. And I realize it's already been, some time. But since our last discussion, I've heard from some community members expressing a few concerns. One, that perhaps the coordination between the city and the Y hasn't been as robust as it could have been. I think you may have heard that as well. And so I think we need to address that. But I think that the community needs assessment was conducted before the details of the Y project were widely known. And so we may even need to do a new community needs assessment because that may have changed, things may have changed. In the Y facility and the proposed rec center facility are very similar in design. So I think, we should probably revisit the scope and the design of the project. There's a concern about the fact that the price tag hasn't come down. And so, despite the fact that like certain components that were originally envisioned probably aren't going to happen or would happen much later in the project, I think that we need to really look at that cost, because I'm concerned that we're going to go out to bond and that price tag is just going to be sticker shock for people and it's not going to fly. People are concerned about their taxes with, the potential for a jail bond, which from what I understand now is not going to happen until the November ballot, but still, like, that's, you know, people are aware that that's happening. I also think, you know, we don't have any real financial commitments. We've talked about a lot of that. But I think it would be good to have a clearer picture of like who the potential financial partners are gonna be. You know, for example, like, you know, we've had a lot of people express their enthusiasm for the project. Obviously, we got a lot of emails. We got a letter from Hudson College. However, I went back and read that letter and it doesn't look like they are committing to any money. And so that would be a question, like, do we have any kind of commitment from them? Because it looks like, you know, based on their letter, most of that support is, you know, this would benefit our, you know, internship programs and field work and those sorts of things. So it seems like most of the benefit would be for them, but like, what would be the benefit, you know, back to the city? I spoke with some local gym owners and who are already concerned because the Y is putting in a new state-of-the-art fitness facility. I think like in the new, you know, the new plan, maybe that's not gonna happen, but we haven't seen a new revised plan. But, you know, we've got some local businesses, fitness facilities who are already concerned. And then this is just gonna kind of, you know, exacerbate that issue because, you know, we don't want to be putting them out of business. So I think we need to be thoughtful about like not overlapping with the private sector. So those are kind of my comments, but I know we're on limited time and I don't want to monopolize. I do have questions, but like if anyone else has stuff, I have more questions, but I don't want to monopolize the time because I know some people have to leave early, so.
Did you want answers to those questions? Cause I'm happy to have, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess, and I know that all the answers aren't gonna be available tonight, but, you know, like, I guess the, you know, financial commitment, I guess, would be one of the questions. And, you know, would we be seeing a revised plan before we do this? Oh, and then another question that I have is, have we considered potentially doing the bond in phases? Like we do, you know, for phase, because I know we have a, you know, what you presented us last time was a phased in project, but still the bond would go out for the full amount.
This is
So
a phase bond.
that's a phase bond.
Yes.
Okay, so it would be, so how much would be the bond in June? It would be that first.
6.2 million is the first bond tranche. And then
Okay,
so there's 5 total issuances in adding up to 75 million.
okay, so those are gonna go up, so we're not gonna be looking at a $75 million bond issue, so, okay.
And this schedule assumes that it's issued in those 5 tranches. That's
Yeah,
why
okay.
it doesn't start at the highest payment amount.
Yeah, because that way we can make sure that it's gonna work, things might change, we kind of, you know, like build some trust along the way. Anyway, I had a lot of questions out there, so.
A lot of questions, but before you answer, does your question piggyback on Counselor Falloon's?
No.
Totally separate, okay.
Tracy Willett, Parks and Recreation Director. So we answered the bond question you had.
Yeah.
As far as commitments, that is going to be the conversation pending your approval to put it on the June ballot. There'll be an opportunity to start to really solidify some potential commitments out there. Right now, we've been kind of this holding phase before we can really pursue those kinds of things. Are there opportunities for naming sponsors, all of that? Absolutely. And we had some of that discussion when we were having a discussion with the bonding attorney. So there are opportunities for commitments out there. This is the first step to get us toward that.
Okay, has anyone like indicated that they are interested in?
They're waiting to see how this process goes.
Yeah.
So they're, and we've heard, and I see some folks from the Y here tonight. Certainly there's an opportunity. I think we shared this, if I can speak correctly, with some staff to why already there's an opportunity for ongoing discussions and meetings back and forth as we go through, if we go through and when we go through the next process. Much of what we're doing now is essentially going to move to a new facility. So it's the program that we currently do spread out over the city. It's the childcare that we both do. There's been a lot of conversation about the fitness piece in general. When we spoke with council back in July, we talked about pulling that off the initial concepts. And so as not to create that potential perception of that duplication. So the square footage that we need hasn't changed. The programming that we're doing now hasn't changed, and the need in general hasn't changed for either facility. So it's been through a feasibility process, which was a very robust stakeholder. There was knowledge of the Y project at that point. So the feedback that we have seen and what the consultant that performed the feasibility study for us heard was the need for this combined facility. And folks that responded to our conversations certainly indicate that.
Well, I have Councilor Leonard before Councilor Mallard.
Have I answered?
I think I have some more questions, but I didn't want to monopolize the time because I know
Can I go before?
Councilor Mallard has to leave, so.
He's conceded.
All right.
The question I have is, what's the effect on the tax rate during the 5 different issuance of the bond, and what's the final effect in the, after the 5th?
So I apologize, I did not print out copies of what I handed out last time. And so depending on as we had discussed last time, this shows you 3 different potential repayment schedules. The highest payment amounts appear in about years 5 through 8. Which is shortly after we take out the largest of the tranches of loans. And depending on which repayment schedule you look at, we choose, it would be between a low to high 5 million yearly bond repayment.
Which would be what effect on a $250,000 assessment?
Roughly $300 a year on 7%, $300 a year on a $250,000 house. So not cents, it's real dollars for sure.
So I personally am not, I don't have a problem with building a new facility, but I don't think this is the time to do it. We don't have enough information on what's available out there as far as the Y is concerned. And the sports facilities that are being built in Hamden for soccer, I think it would be nice to wait and see what's going on there before we jump. I don't want to give the tax burden to the citizens for 30 years of $300 and some potentially a year.
Councilor Leonard?
Sure. So we need a new arena. Sawyer Arena is at its end of life. I think we all acknowledge that. And going into this, I was well aware of the $4 million increase in the school budget. That's a very real thing. I would be supporting that school budget because the only cuts that seem like we can make from there are cutting teachers, which I'm never going to be a fan of. And even with that in mind, even with the costs rising up, I saw this as a good opportunity for us to really get into the weeds of starting a much needed process to get a new facility in, but especially a new hockey arena. The thing that really threw a wrench into my overall feeling about this is the war in Iran. I don't know what's going to happen, fiscally speaking, this upcoming year due to all that. And I feel like if we go through with this right now, when voters come out in November to vote on this, I think it's going to fail. I don't want this to fail. I want to see us revisit this. I want us to have a bond question that goes out to Bangor voters because we need a new Sawyer Arena. I think we owe it though to not only the public, but also to ourselves to have a year's worth of coordinating with some of these individuals who are way behind the scenes for what we are doing, to actually coordinate with them to say, hey, how much are you willing to put forward with this? Because right now, this is going to be a regional facility at the end of the day. That's what it is. And it's not going to be just for Bangor. I strongly believe that the usage is going to be there. I strongly believe that the demand is there. I think right now we need to give ourselves time to actually get everything organized so that we actually know what we are going to be delivering to the voter for a question coming up. I think right now, if we put this forward, it's going to be too fast. That $75 million figure, while it's not going to be the figure that is going to be the first thing that they're going to be voting on, I can guarantee you that's all anyone's going to be talking about. So I don't want this to fail. I think if we put this through, it is going to fail in November. So that's how I feel about it right now. And I just don't see this happening. I don't think the citizens are going to have the willpower to actually vote on this. And if I'm being quite frank, it's our responsibility as counselors to also be responsible in terms of giving questions to the voter as well. I don't feel like it would be prudent of me to vote on putting out a bond question when I believe it's going to fail, when I also don't believe it really has a chance to go forward at this time. I think we need the public to be more educated on this. We need to also have more public-private partnerships. I'm even open to opening a TIF district for the city if that helps out in some way. But right now, I'm very concerned about the future of not just Bangor, but also in the country right now. So that's where I stand.
Counselor Beck?
So I know we've discussed the cost of doing nothing. You know, the facility will crumble, you know, the ice arena has past its usefulness. Has there been any discussions about a plan B if this were to fail, as far as alternatives? And here's what I mean by that. Like the ice arena, for example, we had received so many emails, so many in support. I reached out to about 40 of those emails, and I was moved really by the number of people who wrote back and say, how do we get involved? From the director of the Junior Black Bears to the board members there who say, how can we get involved in a booster? How can we get involved in a nonprofit? How can we partner with the city to make the arena piece happen? Likewise, I look at the childcare situation and how many childcare facilities closed during COVID. ARPA money would have helped, but didn't get out to them in time, and that's just how it is. But as far as, you know, what do we do about that? Does the YMCA have the capacity where, you know, would it be cheaper for the city to say, okay, you know, we're gonna come up with scholarships to come up with the difference between what our fees were and what the YMCA charges, if they could take the capacity, or how can we help bring back some daycares that we had in the city before? I guess, because to me, I guess it's hard because it's a choice between this or watch it all crumble, whereas it feels like, hey, we could have this, but if it doesn't work out, this is what we can do instead. And it would be nice to hear about a plan B, but especially when it comes to the private public partnerships, because I feel like in just looking at how the conversations happen, I get the idea that, well, it's nice to know we've got the bonds and this is going to happen one way or another. Now, how do we chip away at the cost? But I mean, just to know for a fact before we even go into the bond, hey, these are the people who are gonna stand with us, these are the businesses that are gonna stand with us. This is what they can do. So it would be good to hear more about a plan B, is what I'm saying, just if this doesn't work out.
Tracy.
I'll take Sawyer Arena first, and I know I've shared with you all collectively throughout the process, we're on borrowed time. In answer to the question about Plan B, repairing Sawyer Arena is not one of those options. It's a sand floor at Sawyer Arena. I'm gonna call it the mat that we use to freeze the sand to create the ice has been repaired once, and the company that repaired it for us on the way out said no guarantees, and that's the last time we'll be able to do that. Chiller is the original chiller, and it's 30 plus years old. The boards at Sawyer continue to lean outward. Again, that's just a matter of time. So trying to answer the Plan B question, it was quickly apparent during our feasibility process to the consultant that renovate was not an option because of the cost just to do that. And we are still with a 30-plus-year-old facility that's more than recent usefulness. The Park and Rec Center is getting the same situation. Childcare, I think we talked about this at the workshop. Childcare in particular has changed as far as needs of participants. Some of that quiet space that many newer schools and or childcare facilities have, we don't have. That quiet space currently is the hallway by my office. We're starting to see some roof leaking again, and a roof that repaired, it's nearing its maturity. We have some of the sprinkler system in some of the maintenance areas that's starting to leak, so we'll have to make some repairs there. So much like Sawyer Arena, where we're located, it's an old armory, is also reaching that time. So this was the need that we had, need that we saw, and recognize, Councilor, to your point, that it's probably no great time to push something like this through. We had discussion back in July with the council. We paused then for some reasons to create some information for you to present that we did a couple of weeks ago. So I think I've hopefully answered your question as far as Plan B is concerned. We're getting on borrowed time with both places, and Sawyer is more imminent for sure. I've said a few times at these workshops and these meetings, we cross our fingers every time in October when we turn the chiller on and hope it all works out and we don't have leaking or some other issue to deal with. It was never intended to last as long as it has. So, and the Park and Rec Center and Old Armory, much in the same situation.
Would it be fair to say that if the chiller at Sawyer did not turn on in October, that resource would just go away?
The resource would go away. We had a situation where we had to make some repairs this year due to some vandalism, and we're able to rent something at a cost. So we worked with insurance company to do that. But it would, to replace that chiller is going to be quite an expense for a 6-month operation. Conversely, in the concepts we've done for the new facility, there'd be an opportunity to generate revenue with at least 1 year round sheet of ice. So it would help us increase our revenue for the ice operation in particular to help offset the cost of that.
Councilor Flynn.
Thanks. Are we gonna see a new design with some of the things, like a fitness center removed?
We can go back to the original consultant. And actually, interesting, we probably already have that in the original feasibility study. So the original feasibility study did not include the fitness piece. So we can share those for sure from the original study. It was part of the special committee's recommendation that council appointed to bring that back. So we can revert back to the original concepts in the feasibility study that did not include the fitness piece.
May I ask a question first?
Yeah.
Childcare. Do we currently have a wait list?
Yes.
And the new facility will bring in considerably more.
We're hoping by improved, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We're hoping by improved spaces at where we're at the Park and Rec Center out on childcare. And if you've been in there during before and after school, it is a very segmented facility. We've got rooms all over the building that we use for childcare. That requires us to dedicate staff to those spaces and staff appropriately for the ages. In the new facility, single level and kind of a pod arrangement. So we're hoping that it's at the very minimum going to enhance what we're doing. And by allowing some better spaces, perhaps add some slots to the childcare to expand that. I think everyone will agree that's doing childcare, there's not enough. There's not enough. And even with expanding childcare, there's still, especially with school day here, for before and after school programming. I think both organizations were a drop off to pick up scenario that we get transported to and from school every day. I believe the Y does something similar, but I don't want to speak for them.
Just follow up on that. Do you know if the lack of childcare is keeping some parents from actually being able to go out and work outside of the home? And would that, start to spark some more economy by allowing more people to work if there's better childcare available?
In generally speaking, I think there are families here in Bangor that make some pretty tough decisions when it comes to those kinds of things, and what is affordable for them and where they can get into for childcare. We do offer a fee assistance program now for residents that's utilized by residents who have affordability issues. In addition to that, we're participating in state childcare subsidy programs so that we get some of those fees back. So yeah, I think there are some families out there that make some pretty tough decisions.
Councilor Flour?
How many, do you know how many more childcare slots you plan to have with a new facility?
It depends on what our enrollment is at that time. So certainly it will allow us, by better efficient use of space, to grow a few slots, but a definitive number we didn't come through with the feasibility study.
Okay, because I know the Y is planning to double theirs, so I didn't know if we necessarily needed to double it, but probably increase it. Yeah, absolutely. Right, and I did speak with Diane earlier today, and Diane from the Y, and she did indicate that that is part of the reason they are adding to theirs, is because so many daycares closed during COVID, and that it is an issue for parents, so that
Interesting enough,
Yeah.
during COVID, it was a handful of childcare facilities that decided right away to continue to offer childcare during COVID. Rec and the Y were two of those. I believe it was Hilltop School, Penquist, and Parkside were the others. And we were on calls together once a week. And I share that with you in particular. There's certainly still growth and opportunity as we go through the process to continue that dialogue.
Councilor Leonard?
I was just gonna have a general question. Are we going to allow for public comment for this committee meeting?
Do we have a number of people that wanted to speak? I think we could allow brief comments tonight where we haven't had a lot of public discussion on this.
do we still have people in Zoom? Do we?
I don't know.
Picture with them. Take a look.
Diane from the Y was going to join me Zoom, so I don't know if she's.
I don't see a hand, but I don't think that portion is up. Want a hand up?
See if I can make this work from here.
Nobody's hand is actually up. Yeah. Diane. Why don't we allow her to speak prior to, just so we get a perspective from the line?
Could you run it from the back, yeah? It's on you. This won't, this isn't working.
I think that's only most of them.
Oh, you moved this. No, I think there's one in there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't know. All right, it looks like, Diane, you're unmuted. Can you hear us?
Great, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a very raspy voice and I apologize. I'm just got out of the hospital with pneumonia and with bronchitis, so I apologize that I am not there in person, but you don't want to see me right now. I just want to comment on a couple of things to answer Councilman Dean's question about the childcare and the community needs assessment we did definitely showed that parents were not able to go back to work. Primarily, it wasn't the school age children, the before and after school, it was primarily the early childhood education. And that's what caused us to double the size of our early childhood education program as well. And to start as early as 6 weeks old rather than 1 year old that we start now. And that definitely is an economic boost to be able to get people back into the workforce. I am a big supporter and clearly understand from somebody who has lived in an old decrepit facility as the Y has been. So I clearly understand Tracy's needs for a new ice rink and a new before and after school center. And I support that 100%. What I cannot support is the teen center and the older adult center and the fitness center and the running track, because those are all things that will be in the new Y. And I do worry about the duplication there. I also have to say that what your feasibility study showed was that our feasibility study was absolutely right on. And we did ours a couple of years before yours, but we never came out publicly before you did your community needs assessment. Nobody knew what was going to be in the new Y at all. And that we didn't come out with that until I think 2 years after your feasibility study. So I really think that what the feasibility study showed is that the Y has done 2 feasibility studies now, and if you put all 3 of those together, R2 and the Parks and Rec, it shows that there are needs in this community, and that is how this Y was designed. It does not mean that there needs to be duplication of all of these efforts. So that would be of concern to me. I will completely support Tracy and the city on every effort to get the new ice rinks and the childcare before and after school, but I cannot support on anything else.
Thank you, Diane. We appreciate your perspective.
If we could just follow up with that. If we did take some of those out of the new facility, how much would it change the price tag? It sounds like it wouldn't be a substantial amount.
Wouldn't be a substantial amount. However, if those are the kinds of concepts, and we've had this discussion before when it comes to some of the dialogue and back and forth with why. There is an opportunity to reframe and remessage some of the things that we included in some of our feasibility studies to remove those outwardly. the senior programming we're doing now, we have a senior group that meets at our place 2 or 3 times a week to play bingo, cards, and just gather. So they were one of the groups in particular that someone spoke with. So we're doing that now. At one point, the department had a dedicated part-time employee just to senior program. So that's the type of programming we have been doing anyway. The teen center in particular that Diane referenced, much like the fitness piece, certainly there's an opportunity to reframe our building concepts as part of the messaging going forward. At the end of the day, the cost doesn't change a whole lot. The space needs for us are still the same.
I do believe we have a couple of gentlemen who would like to speak. Why don't we do that now so we can address your concerns?
Here, okay.
Certainly.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Sprague. I'm at 134 Norway Road in Bangor. Was on the council from November of 2020 until November of 23.
Excuse me, and we are going to.
Okay, I can do that. This project now, well, let me start by saying that the Parks and Rec offers some wonderful programs. And the childcare issue, I don't think is an issue. I think the continuation of that with adequate space is a given from what the community would want. But the project that we see now is a long wish list of program options. It hasn't been sufficiently scrutinized despite the consulting study. In the course of the original study, which was delivered in 2024, through all the meetings of the council, through the subsequent special committee on the future of the Parks and Rec facility, no groups have ever been asked to assess the cost implications as for what has been discussed. There's been no discussion of the community's willingness to absorb the taxes necessary to pay for this project. So we have a wish list with no financial discussion. If the people who had made the suggestions were also asked the question of, are you willing to pay for this, you might have gotten a different answer from that. It's very misleading. There's a lot of great to have components in the way of looking at this, but the consultants essentially gathered together the wish list and restated it. It had limited critical review, and I think what we have is a champagne taste project, which should be evaluated from a beer budget mentality. When it was presented, the advisory committee's report was presented in the summer of 25. It implied that there had been a great deal of coordination with the Y, and the Parks and Rec and the Y were in agreement. That clearly was not the case. And the advisory committee, I think, was misled about how much collaboration there had actually been. In the August 11th council meeting, this was all discussed. It was clear that the Y was not in sync. And I came away from that meeting with the expectation that Parks and Rec and the city were going to revise the project, take the space out, take the associated fees out, trim the project from its overall cost, which was estimated to be too high, and come back with a revised proposal. Clearly, that has not happened. There's been time to do it. It just hasn't been done. The Ice Palace, as I would call it now, is a $25.580 million deal with nice amenities. That exceeds all of the money that the city spent on ARPA. If you think about that amount. The original project started out the total at the high end of $60 million. It's now at 74 million since the original study was done. The bond issue is $75 million, but the cost of the project, the bonds plus the interest over the life of the bonds as projected by the city manager are $136,936,000. So it's not the 75 million, it's the $136 million that taxpayers will be asked to absorb. The projected amount over the first 5 years is $15 million. That's an additional $3 million of taxpayer payment on average per year added to the tax base. That seems to be extreme. The operating deficits for the current Parks and Rec facility was stated in the original proposal to be $144,849. The operating deficit in year one in the June 2025 study was stated to be $1,669,000. And that may or may not include under contracted services what was paid to the city to cover the bond issue. But these are implications, financial implications that go far beyond which has been disclosed to the public. There's no transparency in the public disclosure. There has been no open voice given to this. And I think if the council recommends us go to bond issue, it's essentially the community saying, these are people we trust, saying that this is a good idea. And I think it's bad.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Scott? Welcome to the table.
My name is Scott Hardy and I'm a citizen of Bangor. And I really like the idea. Also, I want you to know that I do appreciate the idea. It's the cost, it's the humanitarian cost. And I'm going to be much briefer. 75 million is a huge amount of money alone, let alone add the interest to it. And what is this going to do to the people that are renting in Bangor? The landlords are going to raise rent substantially. Homeowners are going to be in jeopardy. And I know that we all see the homeless population out here. We all see it, but we've turned a blind eye. I've done it myself. I absolutely have. We see it so often, we become desensitized to it. We had a man come in with frozen toes to our office just recently, and that's a tragic thing to see. And it's getting worse. We're going to put more people out on the street by increasing taxes. And I've heard that this wants to attract people coming to Bangor, right? Well, we're also going to attract more homeless also to Bangor by doing this at this time. And the reason is because they can't afford it. And so my main passion here, and I have to be a little bit passionate, is that are we doing the humanitarian thing? Do we need more daycare? Absolutely. Does the Y have it covered? I don't know if the Y has it all covered or not, but it does appear to be tremendous duplicate of stuff. And to me, it's just a sad state of affairs. And you, the city council, is here to look after all the citizens of Bangor, all of them, even the homeless. So I'm asking you to if you're going to spend money, let's fix that problem and then spend money on more fun things to spend money on. So that's brief. Thank you.
I think the frustrating thing here is we can't afford to do this, but we can't afford not to do this.
Right.
So what else can we do besides this huge amount? Have you ever looked at a smaller version of this?
So, as I've said, the original consultant, the original RP was to renovate or replace. As we go through the process, we very well could be making some of those difficult decisions as actual costs start to come forward. We had discussed eliminating one of the sheets of ice. The feedback that we got from the junior black bear groups and the hockey groups that you folks have heard from, the 2 sheets of ice are indeed needed. The gymnasium space that's part of this is not, it's essentially absorbing what we do now. All of our programming in the winter, most of our programming in the wintertime happens in school gymnasiums when we can get access to them. The school part has been a great partner. That's not my point. It's just they have their own activities and programming. So there was in the original study phased options to it. The entire project was all going to happen on the property. The maintenance building is a separate piece. to that, and I think in one of the schedules that we talked about, that would come in one of the later phases of construction. As we talked about earlier, we're at that critical point into how you started the question. We're at a point where doing nothing is not necessarily an option. That plan B that you asked about just isn't there. This concept of is consolidating and absorbing essentially what we're doing now, spread out in variety of facilities and using facilities that have reached their useful life.
Counselor Beck.
I was gonna say, so I guess circling back to the idea of plan B, I guess in my mind, I was not thinking so much of how we patch up what we have. It was plan B for getting this done or something like this done. Cause I look at the ice arena, for example, and I wonder, you know, what if you carve that piece away and say, okay, we're gonna do this separately? You know, because you see projects around the country where it's like $20 million or less to get two sheets of ice, maybe not as many as amenities. They pull it up and they do it through partnerships with the Booster Club, with the nonprofit, and they get their own financing through that with a little help from the city who chips in, kind of like what we do with other funding stacks. And we don't have to absorb the whole thing. Likewise with the childcare, if you know, that's another big piece of this is that, you know, what if we built a facility just for that and found other ways to finance that? Or, you know, again, looking at all the daycares that closed, you know, I just look at that as an opportunity of how do we, you know, boost them and see if we can get folks to come back and open a new childcare. Because I guess if this fails, I hate that the choice that this referendum is more or less a statement of values is what I'm worried about. We're saying if we don't do this, then we're saying that these things aren't important and we'll do nothing and watch the things crumble, as opposed to, you know, finding other partnerships, finding other avenues to finance it that doesn't have to be on the backs of the taxpayers. What I'm looking for here.
Yeah, I think my perspective on this process is that council directed staff to do a feasibility study and that was completed, and then empowered a committee, a special committee, to review that and make a recommendation to council. And I think city staff has seen our role in that process to be to champion and usher that process for you to consider. And that's sort of what you have before you is the end result of that council directed process with a recommendation before you to consider. There's no plan B because our role has been to usher that process to its completion. Certainly, if you decide to not go with that special committee's recommendation, we will have to come up with a plan B, right? Because that will be our job as city staff. But up to this point, our job has been to work this process.
Counselor Flu.
Thank you. In my mind, I think I don't want to do nothing. I'm seriously concerned that if we put it out to bond, you know, as is, it's gonna fail. I'm really concerned about that. And then we've got to wait and that just sets us way back. What I would like to see would be a revised plan that's scaled back some and a more proactive approach now of getting some commitments, either in the form of sponsorships or grants, like community block development grants, state level program grants, foundations, maybe a capital campaign. Like, I don't think we would head that up, but maybe some of the hockey folks, maybe even exploring some public-private partnership models. I don't know if that's even been considered, where, you know, maybe a private operator would co-fund something, and then in exchange for a revenue sharing or a lease agreement or something. I'm just throwing some ideas out there, but just, you know, sort of like some things that we have in place going into it so that we know we've got, you know, X number of dollars, and that we're not going to need to finance all of that and put that on the backs of taxpayers. Like, in my mind, that's what I would want to see. I know, like Diane told me when I spoke to her earlier, from the Y, like they were able to, like, they're probably not gonna owe any money on their facility because they were so proactive in doing that. And I don't know that we can get there, that would be great, but, you know, I think doing more of those things to offset this would be really, really helpful and would also, you know, let the taxpayers know that, you know, there is, you know, other work and that we're not just relying on them for this.
And those are all, I'm sorry if I may, those are all opportunities to pursue for sure, and we're doing it as much small degree currently. And so we're with our any secure sponsorships and the actors. So the concept and that it's a much smaller scale is already happening. So certainly going forward, we had the discussion early on with our bond attorneys about the ability to do those kinds of things. We didn't want to limit our ability to do those kinds of things through the bonding.
Any other questions?
So this might be a question, it might be a little early for this question, but when I was reading back through the plans, this building, you know, there could be an opportunity for solar on this building. Have there been any studies done on like what that could mean as far as offsetting? I can imagine that the energy costs in this old facility are crazy. Have there been any studies done to figure out how much energy savings we could potentially see?
So the consultant in the feasibility study did include that option. Those kinds of real opportunities would come through an engineering and design phase. So when you're actually knowing what potential power needs would be, the heating needs would be, and how much solar energy could be generated from the rooftop. The feasibility study wasn't built to do that. It was built to provide the concepts and some of the concepts we could explore going forward, like solar panels on the roof.
So unfortunately, I don't think we can come up with any definitive answers because there's so many questions. And we've already had a first reading. We need to decide whether we're moving this on to council for a full vote. So even if we make a motion and second it, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are in agreement of moving forward. It's an agreement that we will bring it to full council. But there are still so many questions that I think we all have. So it's a difficult one because it's quite a bit of money. I mean, even if we said it was 50 million, I think we would all say, my goodness, that's a lot of money.
Yes, no,
You know,
I agree. I agree with all of that. We agree with all of that. As far as some of the things we've talked about here tonight, I think the original, if we go back to the original recommendations of the original feasibility study, that didn't include recommendations from the special committee that might address some of these concerns we've heard tonight. We can, and I don't know if it's worth doing another discussion pre-council, but something to consider, I guess, for next Monday night. And as I shared with Council Falloon about the solar panels, the feasibility study requested by the council certainly did what it was supposed to do in coming up with concepts and potential recommendations and estimating construction costs as much as a feasibility study.
And just to be clear on sort of the procedure, this will be on for second reading no matter what. It will just be accompanied by a committee recommendation. Okay. So it will be on the agenda.
So do we need a motion on this or it's already been?
You should vote a committee recommendation and that will be included on
The order, but it will appear on the agenda regardless of what that recommendation is.
Okay. And we cannot change it at this point. This is how it is until we. Unless if we don't pass it, then we can revisit.
If you do not pass it, then you can revisit it. Certainly.
And if we pass it, it's as is. This is.
That's right.
So. What does everyone think?
I'm of the mindset of wanting to revisit the process. I mean, I guess one of my original objections last year, and it kind of still follows me today, is I just feel like not enough was done to take the number one recommendation, which was the private-public partnerships. And getting the response from the Black Bears and just seeing what's possible now that I didn't get to see last year. I think that there's something real that can be done there that significantly reduces the burden, still gets the ice. And it's just something as a community we can all be proud of, and we did together as a community. That's just where I'm at right now. Is I want to see new ice. I just that cost, and it's just hard to say that to the taxpayers of, you know, so many of them investing in it. And many families have reached out to me and said the location and the bus routes and all of that makes it difficult to participate if they wanted to. You know, and I hate to put that burden on them. I just want to revisit this from the beginning of how do we get the community to partner with us to get what the community needs.
Do we have additional concerns or questions for city manager or?
I think I think I like it. I think I've raised all my concerns, but I mean, I have that. I'm just super concerned that it's gonna fail if we try to pass it as is. That I do think that we need to spend more time on this. I would really love to maybe talk in our, you know, when we have more of the council here, maybe in our workshop on Monday even.
We can talk, but until we do another study, we don't know what we can do. You know, I mean, we can talk, but we don't know what we can cut or what that would be in savings until we
Right.
totally revisit it.
I almost feel like we
Every other
do.
large project that we have that we just talk about until it has to go somewhere else. because
Yeah,
we're
I
not the
know.
authorities on it.
I know, we have to make a decision. Sorry, I'm just continuing to talk here, but I feel like maybe we do need another, like, I don't know, feasibility study or like a community needs assessment. Because like, you know, things have changed from like, I don't know when that was done, but things have changed and now there's more out there about what exactly the Y is doing. So it might look different now.
Here's a question, the open house or the public hearing rather, is that happening before the second vote?
That happens just like, sort of like amusement license. So it happens
Okay,
at the vote,
so we'll get to hear from the public
So-
before we vote.
yes.
Okay. Can we make a motion that's neither for nor against, just to say we discussed it, like we're acknowledging the discussion? I mean, I really would be interested to hear what the whole council has to think, or what the public comes out and they have to say, like that really is gonna be what cements it for me.
So my understanding is that the procedural rules do not accommodate a neither for nor against vote. It either needs to be a yes or a no. But you can preface it by saying we're moving this for discussion, or
I think that's a very good idea. We need to move it forward in order to discuss it further.
I mean, I was just gonna vote yes on it, just to move it forward, just so it's it's the least confusing aspect, but if we are gonna vote on this Monday night, I will be planning on voting no for it in its current state. If you want, I can even make a motion on this.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we recommend this go forward to council.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, any doubt? Then we will bring this forward to council for further discussion.
may I ask a question of the folks that are still here? Is there anything for Monday that you would like us to prepare for you? Or do you feel like you have what you need from us and it's just hearing the public input and then a vote?
For me, it's just the public.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, really when it comes down to the cost, like this, yeah, I'm so thankful that staff brought forward the numbers, because it happened so fast last time, we didn't get a chance to get the numbers. This time we know. So the public's gonna have a chance to say, yeah, I can afford this, yeah, or no, I can't, and speak to that piece of it. Cause I know that's the tough piece is, you know, we all agree that we need the facility. It's just, you know, what can our purses bear?
And I would like to know, it seems like the most immediate need is the arena. And if we were to just go ahead with an arena while we're in such dire straits, what would the cost of that be? Is it still the 25 million or is it it could be 35 million because obviously it costs more money to do less work when you have the same footprint. So maybe we need to know what that would cost. Or perhaps we could do just one rink and down the road add another rink. Again, I know that adds costs down the line, but
We have gone down this path before, but we can certainly discuss it at the workshop. If
I
that's
think these
sounds
are
like-
questions
okay.
that people are gonna have because everyone's concerned with the big price tag.
Understood.
Anything else?
Just to answer her question, like, I don't think, I know, sorry, I had a ton of questions tonight, but I've been saving them all up, you know. I don't think there's anything that I've asked for that you could deliver by Monday, so, so probably not.
Anything else on this subject? No. And anything else from finance?
I'll be sending out the schedule pretty soon for the budget workshops. Good, I'll be coming soon.
Thank you. With that,
About the budget after this conversation.
I believe. Just FYI, no, I was just gonna say FYI, I will be gone that week of like whatever school vacation is in April, so like just for like planning.
so you're gonna save your questions for the next week?
Yes. When I come back, I will have 1 million questions.
It is 6:33. I believe finance is adjourned.
Like,